Hey guys, it's Chad. Welcome back to Griffith Woodworking. This is part 3 in my video series on my flip-top workbench for my miter saw. If you haven't already, go back and check out part 1 and part 2 that shows how we've got here so far. Let's jump right back into it and get this miter saw installed on the new flip-top. Alright guys, I'm back out here in the shop today. I've finished the flipping top for my miter saw, but the next thing I need to do is put a lock for it, so it doesn't do this whenever we're working with it. We need to have a little way to lock it right in place here when I put my miter saw inside here, and we also need a way to lock it when the miter saw is underneath, so this is still nice and smooth. So what I'm going to use as a lock is this piece of bar that I cut off from the main bar that goes through the flip top. I'm going to use this as a peg to keep this in place, to keep it from rotating, both when it's on the top and both when it's flipped over for the miter saw. I'm going to drill a hole 5/8 of an inch diameter through here, and it'll go through the other board on the other side, and I'll use this as a peg. I'll stick it through and it'll lock it in place to where it won't rotate anymore. I'll use this side whenever it's flipped up, and then I'll probably use this side whenever it is just the tabletop. That way I don't have to worry about getting the same exact hole to be used whenever it's flipped this way and flipped this way. This way I can just drill one hole here when it's one way, the peg will be on this side when it's flipped over, and then the peg will be through the bottom here whenever it's just the tabletop. Alright, so let's get started. So to get started with putting my locking peg in, I need to make sure that the flip top is level relative to the tabletop. So we'll get started over on this side. It looks like the level puts it right on the front edge, which makes sense because the drain's over there, so this is sloped a little bit that way, just barely. So I'm going to put it on here. Need to go down a lot here. Oh, too far. Alright, that's right on the line. Right on that front line. So these are level to each other. Let's check this side just to be sure. This one is a little bit better on that right there. Yep, same exact thing. So this is the position I want it to stay in, and when I drill my hole on my peg, put the locking peg in. In order to keep this in the right spot, I'm going to go ahead and clamp it to the side here. There's nowhere to really clamp it together in this area, so I'm going to have to clamp it from here all the way to the end of my bench with my big 48-inch clamp. Now after I clamp it, I want to make sure that it hasn't moved while I clamped. But for now, we're just going to try to get this tight. Alright, that's pretty tight. That's not going to move. So let's double check. Right on the line. Oh, it did move. So I need to loosen this and fix it. Alright, it's a little bit loose. I should be able to move it now. This needs to go down. Just a touch. Perfect. Go ahead and tighten that more. Alright, yeah, that's nice now. I know earlier I said I was going to use this 5/8 inch peg that I cut off of my bar here. But unfortunately, I can't find my 5/8 inch drill bit. So I don't know where it is, so I'm going to change plans. Not going to use that. So I'm going to use my 3/4 inch drill bit, and I'll just use this part, the hollow part that I use for the casings on these, as my peg. So it'll slide right in there. Could just use that one. Anyway, so I've got it set where it needs to be. I'm going to use my 3/4 inch bit. All right, so I'm going to put it here as long as it's out of the way of when I put my miter saw in here. So, and this one isn't as important as when I was putting my bar in to make sure it goes straight across, because this one's just going to be a peg, just stick in there and keep it together. So we'll go ahead and get started here. All right, let's see if it works. Oh yeah, nice and tight. Take the clamp off. All right, let's see the, pretty good. All right, I've got it set for the lock for when it's up, when the miter saw is up. So now I need to get the peg in there on this other side for when it's just the regular tabletop. So we'll flip this back around, and I need to get it to stay level. So the best way I can think of to do that is to clamp the top and bottom here with a clamp that spans both sides here, the table and the flip top. And I'll do the same thing on this side. Like this. There we go. Yep, and that way it's nice and level, nice and smooth. So that's the position I want here. So now I'll get underneath and I'll drill the hole for the same peg between the boards right here underneath. All right, this one has to be drilled from the underside because this is where the peg's going to go when it's just the tabletop and not the miter saw flipped over. So it really doesn't matter where we put it. So I'll just go right here. Make sure I'm not running into one of the pocket screws. Yep, pocket screw right there. So we're going to slide over a little bit right here. Hopefully we don't hit any of the pockets. All right. Now, see if that'll fit through there. Oh yeah, nice and tight. See what happens when we take the clamps off. Ah, this one has a little bit of give in it. I don't like that. We're going to do it again. Put the clamps back on, so we know we're in the right spot again. Clamp on. There we go. Do it a little bit slower this time. All right, let's see if this one's any better. There we go. All right. Take the clamps off. Ah, there we go. That's much better. All right. I'll have to fill that in with something so I don't always put it in there. All right. Very good. Now we will start installing the saw. So we'll go ahead and take this peg out. Flip it around. That was fast. And then we're going to lock it in this position so we can start making sure we put that saw in to where it's level and even. All right, there we go. The first thing I wanted to do is to make this base stronger. This is only 3/4 inch, and I'm worried over time it's going to sag a little bit maybe, or I just want this to be nice and thick. So I have a scrap piece of, I think it's 5/8 inch plywood. I'm going to cut a square the size of this top and slide it in and glue it down and screw it down. That way it'll make it just a little bit thicker of a base for this heavy saw to be sitting on. All right, now, got my table saw set up, cut 19 inches wide of this plywood. Let's go. Inches. Perfect. 19 inches. Now I need to cut the other end to 20 and a half. Perfect. 19. All right, I got my board cut. It's ready to go in. It's going to be really tight. I've sanded the top a little bit just to kind of knock off some of the roughness, and I've sanded the edges here so it'll smooth in nicely. I'm going to go ahead and just pour some glue in here just to make it stick, and then I'll follow up with some 1-inch screws. Alright, I'm just going to push it in there real hard. Alright, almost. Let's get Ooh, there went that. Alright, it's in there nice. Square. There we go. Now we'll follow up with a few little 1-inch screws to make sure it sits flat and flush. There we go. Now we're ready to install the miter saw. So my next step is to cut the pieces of wood that my saw is going to sit on and straddle this bar. I want to make sure that it's the right size to where the top of my saw is the same as the top of the table. That way I can lay things across here, and that's the whole reason I'm doing this. So in order to do that, I need to figure out, I need to measure the distance from the table to the top here, and then measure the distance from this part up to the tabletop. Get the difference, and that's the width of the wood I need to get, and I can just simply cut that on my table saw. So let's get going. In order to measure the height here, I'm going to lay something flat across, and then I'm going to measure from the floor, I'm going to call this the floor, up to the top, the edge of the bottom of this, since that's on the table. To do this, I'm going to use my square. Five and 11/16, and that's 3 1/4. So that gives me a difference of 2 7/16 of an inch. So I need to have some wood 2 7/16 of an inch here that'll sit on. All right, so I've got all the blocks of wood cut that I need that my miter saw is going to sit on. I've marked out where they're going to be, and I've already drilled pocket holes in them to get them screwed in. So they're ready just to start drilling in. Put a little bit of glue on the bottom, and then I'll drill them into to the top here. See how well we did. Oh, that's nice. Right on there. Perfect. All right, now I just got to get this in the right place. Screw it on there. So I've got my miter saw in place. I've double checked to make sure that I have plenty of room for the miter to work all the way from side to side, 45 to 45. Right there. Now I'm going to be using these timber lock screws, 2.5 inch, heavy duty, to make sure this is really locked down. And before I do that, so I don't split my blocks of wood, I'm going to drill some pilot holes. Now these pilot holes don't go down all the way. My drill's hitting the edge of my miter saw, so hopefully that won't be a major problem. Hopefully you got enough down in there. Hopefully we have enough to get this in here as well. We'll see. All right. There we go. All right, I got the last screw in on the back. Now here comes the moment of truth. See if this works. Sure would stink to get this far and not have things work. So we'll lock that down. Put away the cord. All right, now let's pull out the peg. Don't fall off. All right, now it's hanging underneath. Put the peg in the other side. And it's back to a table. All right, guys, well, it was a journey, but it's done and it works. So I'm glad you guys stuck around to see how it worked and to go through this journey with me. We'll do one more time. Pull the peg out, flip it up, and then peg on the other side. And it's all ready to work. Same level as the rest of my table. We can use big long boards and we won't have any issues with this. And then when we're done, pull the peg out, flip it back under, peg it back, and there you go. Thanks guys for sticking around and watching all this. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, just comment in the sections below or shoot me an email. Thanks guys.